we've been dealing with, and we've been dealing with the Ten Commandments, the Lord's Prayer, and the Beautitudes. And we've been dealing with it from the perspective that this is one template for explaining what the Bible says when it says that I am the way, the truth, and the life, and the consciousness of God. That's the way, the truth, and the life. And as I said, other teachers will begin to peel other layers away. This is just one layer to look at this. There is no monopoly on truth. The more that you know, the more that you know that you don't know. And so each level of awareness is an opportunity to reveal one that's not been revealed before. And that's why it's very easy for us at this point to not be judgmental about people, because some people are just stuck in one level of awareness, and that's where they choose to stay. But what we know is that truth is ever expanding. Spirit is ever expanding. It cannot be encased in the confines of my mind, or what I call my mind, or boxed in my own consciousness only. It's available to everybody. So this is where we are today. We've been studying the Beautitudes, and we're in Matthew 5:6. We talked about, we began to talk about, and I think we almost finished it. Hungered. We're in spiritual starvation. And the issue is knowing that we are. There are so many of us who don't even know that we are. We believe that what we see, all that this life here in this on earth gives us, is all that there is. And that is spiritual starvation at the point of almost death. Because unless we rise above that level of consciousness and awareness, true life, which is eternal, because the thing in us that burns is eternal. When I say the burns in us, the spark of divinity in us cannot be, put out. We weren't the ones that put it there in the first place. But those of us who live in spiritual, are living in spiritual death, are really dead and don't know it. And it's only until we become alive in the spirit, alive in our awareness that we are more than these bodies, that we begin to uncover that spark of divinity in us and begin to live therein. So, blessed are they who do hunger and thirst after righteousness. Thirst also has to do with, we just talked a little bit about hunger. Thirst has to do with a feeling of parchedness inside, as well as outside. Remember, everything from the Aramaic perspective, when I say inside, I mean not the body, but the consciousness, has to do with being, you ever had the feeling of being burnt out? Being parched, being dried out. Thirst has to do with that too. And spirit has also been likened to spiritual water as well. And the reason for that is that we equate those things that are necessary for us to live and support the physical body, like food and like water, so that people and we as people can grasp the importance of spiritual life. It's likened to water and food to the physical body. We talked a little bit about Isaiah 29:8, where it says that the man dreamt that he was hungry, and he ate, but when he woke up, he was still hungry. Man dreamt that he was thirsty, and he drank, and when he woke up, he was really still thirsty. And so that we talked about that. This physical life is really the dream. It's only when we uncover and begin to become aware of the spiritual part of who we really are that we really wake up. We talked about, I guess, Psalms 42, 1 and 2 also, the deer panting for the water as well, and the fact that it had to have water in order to live, and we equated that to the fact that that's the way we ought to be as it relates to seeking God and seeking our source, who is really in us and of us, and we of it. It's one and the same thing. Janice.
I remember last week you talked about the deer. They eat serpents?
Yeah. It was this was an ancient kind of thought that the deer liked searching for and eating serpents, yes.
What's the parallel for us with that and our need for the breath of the Creator?
Well, the parallel for us, let me start with the other thing first. What is a serpent and what does it do in terms of the physical? And then we'll translate it into spiritual kinds of things, and other folk, if you have other perspectives, please join in. From a physical perspective, this is a poisonous serpent. Let me just say that too, okay? From the physical perspective, if we get bitten by poisonous serpents, it has an impact on our physical life. I was looking at something on TV, National Geographic or something, that was talking about the mamba snake in Australia, and before they created a venom, an antidote for that venom, that it was almost certain death when someone got bitten by that snake. That's the kind of poisonous thing that we're talking about. And in the physical kind of thing, that can kill us. But in the spiritual, the poisons are just about everything. Our thoughts, especially if they emanate from our ego and they reside in selfishness. They reside in what I want to get for me, myself, and I. And that's it. That's the root of it. Another one of the poisons for us in the spiritual is perceiving that we are separate from our source, from our Creator. We perceive that because we see all of this stuff, because grandmama and them left me some money, or because I pulled my own self up by my own bootstraps and created my own business in this physical world, and I'm doing well, quote unquote. I've got money, I've got power, I've got acknowledgement. People look up to me in the physical. I think that I'm doing well. That's another type of poison in a sense, because what it does is it clouds our mirror of who we really are. And we become God ourselves. So when we think of our own selves as God and only, and there is no other, we're not a part of a greater entity, that's poison also. So those are just some examples. There are so many more. I got you one. So as the deer then takes in that poisonous serpent, the thing about it is it when it gets in the deer's stomach, it lets go of its venom. And that causes an intense burning, and it causes intense thirst for the deer. And it just runs around. It has to have water. It has to have water to dilute the venom, or it dies. And for us, I still got you on. I think one of the things I said last time is that desiring God, desiring the source of our life, is not just a desire, it's an absolute necessity. Just like the water was for the deer, spiritual, for lack of a better word, connection, or spiritual awareness, or spiritual uncovering of our essence, because our essence, our very essence is spirit. Until we uncover that and become aware of that, we run around and we pant and we try to get everything to quench this burning, this internal persecution, if you will, of all these things that we've bought into in the physical. And it's not enough. It's always not enough. Ron?
I would just, I guess, saying pretty much the same thing you were saying. When I think of serpent, though, I think of deception, deceiving. So when you're saying taking and poisoning, it's us dealing with not deceiving ourselves. You know, the person who pulls himself up by his own bootstraps, that's deception. You're deceiving yourself. So it is, I guess, you said it last week, I was trying to think of what the deer represents. I'm guessing innocence maybe, or the panting for life.
Or life itself.
You know, life itself. So the thing that balances that, when you swallow that, or when you do partake in it, or take it, destroy it, you have to balance it off, and it has to be balanced off with life. Is that what you're saying? The word, or the spirit of it has to be the thing that what the water represents.
Well, now that you just brought that up, and I'll get back to you, the thing that we did talk about was the fact that the deer ingested the serpent, and it's going to continue to, you know, if it's accurate in terms of its root. The deer is going to continue to ingest the serpent. The issue is we're going to continue to have these things come in our lives. It's what we do with them that's important. Exactly. Back to you, Ron.
And that's all I'm saying. These things keep, this whole thing, you know, even us being here, you're constantly battling with religion and spirituality, who you are. We're defining ourselves. And to see it any other way other than to look at perfect truth is deceiving yourself. It's all about deception. And whether you allow that to come from an external source or internal, it's all internal, you know, because I have to buy in what he tells me or she tells me, you know.
When you say buy in, that means ingest.
Yes,
in a sense.
So I mean, it just, when you said that, I meant to look that up last week when you talked about it.
I have a question and a comment. So what happens to the deer if he doesn't get water?
Dies.
Okay. So I see it simply as, for us, we're the deer, and we take on anything we take on that is poison to us. Negative energy, too much ego, whatever, that is poison to us. If we don't then turn back to the source of water or to the spirit to sort of cleanse or diminish that thing, then yes, it ends up in death for us.
You see what your question opened up, Janice? Mark?
But you know, one thing I was thinking about when you're talking about getting bit by a poisonous serpent or whatever, I've always heard that when somebody gets bit by a poisonous serpent, it's like almost getting hit by a 2x4 or something. This thing is really shocking, you know, when it strikes you. So, you know, I was thinking about the fact that, you know, when we're in the Word and following truth, those things should rattle you or jolt you when they're not, you know, of God. But we still follow it away anyway. But I just want to bring up the point that you do have some type of notification, some type of alertness that occurs when it's happening. I mean, hey, do I really want to do this?
Yes.
So.
And you hit the target, because that's what these Beautitudes are telling us too, that and we're going to get to it further on today. We're going to get to this today, but Mark just introduced as well the fact that it's these kinds of things that ought to drive us really internally in terms of not our bodies but our consciousness, of expanding that territory of our consciousness, for really connecting even more to who we really are. So that's what the Beautitudes teach us, that we ought to use those supposed obstacles as, leverage, if you will, not for bitterness, not for hatred, but to leverage to help us, to and for lack of a better word, force us internally, not bodies, but consciousness. Okay. Did that open up that a little bit?
It did. I was just thinking about the serpent as a source of nourishment, and I also thought about, I don't know if there's any connection, the serpent that was held up on a stick that folks had to look at in order to be saved. I don't know the scripture or even.
You're talking about in
Moses lifts up the serpent in the wilderness, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up.
Oh, that's
excuse me, as as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up. That's the one you make a reference to in the New Testament. But what happened in the Old Testament, there were serpents on the ground, and Moses was instructed to make a serpent and lift it up. As long as they kept their eye on the serpent, they were not bitten, but when they looked down, they were. And that is actually talking about another way of saying, seek ye first the kingdom of God and righteousness, and all these things will be added, as long as they focus on what was above and not be afraid of the circumstances that surrounded them. They would be delivered. I think it's interesting to note that when you deal with serpents, you have three kinds of serpents. You have neurogenic, hemorrhagic, and non-poisonous. So a neurogenic poison paralyzes you. Fear. Hemorrhagic poison hemolyzes all your blood. And non-poisonous snakes just scare you to death. So it depends on, when you start talking about nourishment, it depends on how you perceive it. If you can perceive, regardless of what you hear from the scriptures, it's your perception of it that determines whether it's going to be nourishment or poison. Because when you think about how you or some others may have gotten where you are, for me, for example, how I got to where I am, the thing that I thought was nourishment became a challenge. And the challenge was that if I did nothing about it, it would serve to be a poison to me. But because I saw that what was given to me for nourishment was not strengthening me, was not changing me, was not giving me any clarity, I realized it was not nourishment at all. It had to be something more. And the something more was, in the beginning, academic search, which quickly became a spiritual realization that there is actually more nourishment for me than what I was receiving. So my eyes then left the serpent on the ground and went to the serpent that was being lifted up.
Which brings us back to the issue that, is anything created by God bad in and of itself? That's the whole issue.
Because that's the same thing. Nick has talked about that a lot. Like if we were in the East, we would just be calling it Kundalini energy.
Yeah.
It's talking about because in the East they say the lowest you is the root of you, right? And it talks about the serpent being coiled up, just like Genesis talks about the serpent being cursed to eat the dust of the ground. It's talking about a coiled energy, selfish energy. But when it's talking about Moses lifting that serpent up, he's talking about changing our attitude of using the energy of our thoughts, the energy of our desires and emotions, not for ourselves alone, which is why he's lifting it up. He's talking about, this is what Pastor Rich was saying, changing that energy now so that serpent becomes, instead of something that is fearful, it becomes something that gives life. And it's something,
So the serpent can still be food to the deer as long as it gets the water. Whatever happens in our lives can still be of use to us if, in fact, if we are rooted in who we really are, the consciousness of our Creator. So
What's the origin of the Medusa?
I don't know the origin.
I used to know what the origin of the Medusa is.
Sheldon, tell us in a minute.
Yeah, because I think that it was because the venom from the snake could be used for healing purposes.
And it is.
Yeah, I think that's where the Medusa came from. I can't remember.
They harness all kind of snake venom
Yeah.
to heal people now for medicinal purposes. And spider, poisonous spider.
Do you remember before Copenhagen, they used the venom from was it the python, the rattlesnake?
I don't know which snake it was.
Yeah, but you remember.
But as a
if I can think of the name of the one they used, I would remember this, the snake. But they use snake venom as a blood thinner before coma.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on until Sheldon finds the answer to that.
He go find it.
Yeah, he will.
He the man.
All right, so we're talking about hungering. We're in Matthew 5. Hello, good morning. We're in Matthew, and Rika came into it. Good morning. We're talking about Matthew 5. We're still talking about Matthew 5. Is what does it mean to be filled? What do you think it means to be filled? I mean, it's not a trick question, so don't overanalyze it.
You're talking about it, part aspects of being filled with the serpent?
Well, if the issue is talking about blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, they shall be filled. Okay, it has to do with being satisfied. It has to do with being, one of the roots of the word of that phrase is to be surrounded by fruit. Fruit meaning whatever it is that you need to sustain you, that you have it in abundance. And so when you're craving apples and you're walking in an apple orchard, that means you can pull an apple anytime you want to. There is no hunger and thirst for apples. You see the sense of what I'm talking about? So whatever it is that we need in terms of hungering and thirsting after righteousness, when we try to stand up and righteousness has to do with stability and a foundation for something. When there's a foundation for peace, or a foundation for love, or a foundation for justice. And when I say that, it's not just external to our consciousness, it's an internal conscious thing as well. Everything has to do with our own consciousness as well as what is quote unquote out there, whatever that means. Okay? So it has to do with being satisfied. Encircled by birth is another meaning for being filled.
You said encircled by birth?
Encircled by birth. Encircled by birth is another instance. And
So let me ask you this.
okay.
Yeah.
So our fulfillment, if it's kind of rooted with being encircled by birth, then we often look at fulfillment being us receiving what we want to the degree that we want it. But it sounds like to me that our fulfillment comes in us giving life. You know what I mean? So it's kind of seems reverse spiritually than it is that when we think about it physically.
Exactly.
But it also tells me that we say encircled by birth, that we are continuously at that place of beginning, and the baby doesn't really know what it wants, or what it needs. So being encircled by a continuous birth is that we're always as children, always as infants, waiting to be nourished, So there are a lot of implications there in being encircled by birth.
And that's being filled. That means that whatever I need, as I need it, when I hunger and thirst after the source of all life, it will be satisfied. It will be there.
The baby creates as he speaks. When the baby cries, he creates an opportunity to be changed. He creates opportunity to be fed, to be held, So all of that's incorporated. Yeah.
It also reminds me of the scripture where Hagar thought she was dying in the wilderness with the baby, and it wasn't until she focused that she could see water was there, or did she create the water with her focus?
Right.
So,
or bring the angel who pointed. I think when you talk about that, it says that an angel appeared and showed her where the water. The question is that was it an apparition, that took human form, or was it internal?
Yeah.
And I lean towards and I use internal very loosely when I say internal. I lean in that direction because I truly do not believe that during the period of whether it be Hagar or whether it be the dude who was on Baal when the angel stood in front of the beast, whether it be that I do not believe that it necessarily had to be an angelic being appearing in a form, because I believe that people were at that moment not to a place where we are in our belief that we are that separate from the Creator. You see?
Yeah, they lived it day by day.
They lived it. So in living it, then the best way they could leave a record of it was to put it in that form. Today we're looking around the corner waiting for Jesus to show up in the sky. You know, or we're looking for an angel to stand at the foot of the bed and say, you know, you say this is what you go preach, boy, that kind of thing. You know, as opposed to, you know, being one with it and sensing it from who we really are.
But even using that example back to Jamil's point, if she does not listen, there is a whole nation that's not birthed.
Exactly.
You know, so by her listening, although it appeared to her that it was something for her,
Right.
but it wasn't. It was more so for the child, so that a nation could be born. You see what I mean?
And that's the giving
That
part.
nation of
When we think things are just for us, it's really not just for us. It's like we say that we are vessels, we're conduits. And when I talk about peacemakers, we're going to talk about that as well. We're conduits for others,
For our offspring. which
not
is
just
what
for
she was.
ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of ties everything in, because what Pastor Richard said is that's definitely, that's how I kind of see it happening. Because I think when they're talking about these different angels, they're describing envelopes or compartments that opened up in them when they reach certain points. You see, it's just like the different names of God. It's dealing with different experiences and defining them with names and words, so that when we get to these places in our life, that we recognize what it is that we find. Because you just like those aha moments when you felt like you couldn't resolve something and then it happens. They just gave a name to that aha moment that the Creator was unfolding within them at those points. And I can see what you're saying, because I was talking about that word imagination. When they got to that point, that ability to image that nation unfolded in her. She said, I have all this life in me. You know, I came to this point so that I could open up my ability to see this life and bring it forth, you know?
Well, she said, did you bring me here to die?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like self-questioning.
Yeah.
She's like, did all this happen for me to just come out in this desert and die?
And die.
Or is it something else?
The other, you know, now I'm not saying that there are not appearances, but I am saying that if you need an appearance, then you need to grow. I never will forget when I was in the midst of this transition from the Bible to the Word of God. I remember hearing distinctively this voice say to me, because I wanted to see stuff. You know, I had seen stuff when I dealt in the occult. I wanted to see stuff. And I had all these people telling me what they had seen. You know, Jesus appeared at the foot of the bed and opened up the tent and said, hey, you know, I wanted him to say it to me. But I heard his voice say to me, you will believe and not see. And then I came across that scripture that said, blessed are those who believe and have not seen. And that didn't change it. I still wanted to see. But I came to realize is seeing is not believing. It really isn't.
So the more blessed it is to see in terms of your own consciousness instead of externally something, because we tend to. That's the nature of our physical world. We tend to attach ourselves to
what we see.
What we see.
So seeing is not believing. What I came to realize is that believing is seeing. Seeing is not believing.
But look how much sense that makes, because if people who want to see, they want to see it to be excited themselves. You see what I'm saying? People who want to see things visually want to be excited. I've been there. I still would like to see
Well, I'm gonna tell you,
a lot of
man,
things.
it wasn't so much at that point. I wasn't excited me. I wanted to see it, so when I stood up there and said that stuff, I had somebody to lean on, to put on. You know, I got all this stuff to say that's contrary to what I've been taught. And I want to say, yeah, well, somebody came and told me this.
Yeah.
I said, it wasn't excitement. It was justification, I suppose.
But the other side of it is what you say, when your focus is believing, then imagine how much the spiritual man now begins to see in everything. Now, the more connected you are, you see angels and everything, but it's not necessarily winged creatures. You see messages in people's feelings who don't understand how they feel, and you're there now to become that to them. You become what people need to see.
And when you were talking about Gabrielle Gifford, you saw the message in
within
the event, in the
I mean,
experience.
the bird message.
Exactly.
They finally said they died from blunt force trauma. Of course, they hit the ground. That's not the question. The question is what made them hit the ground.
Exactly.
You know.
But isn't that a great distractor, though? Blunt force. Anyway.
Gravity.
I think I said that to someone when she first said that, blunt force trauma. Of course, if you fall that, you will die from blunt force trauma.
You're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
Let me read to you a
Where's
couple
supposed
of.
to fall?
What about the fish though?
Yeah.
What blunt?
They drowned. Yeah.
We're still talking about hungering and thirsting after righteousness. You know? Okay, so that part of this hungering and thirsting is understanding and knowing and being able to see what events and experiences show us. Let me read to you a couple of renditions of how this flows in the Aramaic. Okay, and again, the thing about all of this is to take in your consciousness, what we're saying, and get your own interpretation as well. Okay? That has meaning for you from that perspective. It's not so that we memorize exactly what's here, but to make it come alive in each of you. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for physical justice and righteousness. They shall be surrounded by what is needed to sustain their bodies. Good morning, Jean. Good morning, Jean. They shall be surrounded by what is needed to sustain their bodies. Aligned with the one are those who wait up at night. This, I think, is Evelyn's, similar to what Evelyn's experiences sometimes. Wait up at night, you too, Pastor. Weakened and dried out inside by the unnatural state of the world, they shall receive satisfaction. And I guess there's a lot of people waking up right now because of the unnatural state of the imbalance of what's going on worldwide.
Can you read that again?
Aligned with the one are those who wait up at night, weakened and dried out inside by the unnatural state of the world. They shall receive satisfaction. Integrated, resisting delusion are those who long clearly for a foundation of peace between the warring parts of themselves. They shall find all around the materials to build it. Integrated, resisting delusion are those who long clearly for a foundation of peace between the warring parts of themselves. They shall find all around the materials to build it. That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier in a sense. Healed are those who persistently feel inside, if only I could find new strength and a new clear purpose on which to base my life. They shall be birthed by the birthing process. They shall be embraced by the birthing process. So every experience can be a birthing process for us, a newness for us, is what it's saying. Did you see anything on Medusa?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Let's do
Basically,
that one before we move into the
okay.
next.
The snakes represent wisdom. In some cultures, well, I'm predominantly talking about from the Greek and Egyptian, etc. But it represents wisdom, but it also can kill. So it gives life. It can bring the dead back to life, but it also can kill the living. And it a lot had to do with which side of the body the blood was actually extracted from.
So it's the same thing we were saying.
Yes, exactly.
So Medusa actually reminds the doctor he can heal or he can kill. He can do harm. Yeah. You know, in Hippocratic Oath says do no harm. Yeah. Okay.
Bridget?
I was reading about snakes this week, and it was talking about the connection with like the South American culture to DNA, or the bridge between this world and the next, and talking about because whenever you have the snakes, like with the medical symbols and things like that, there's usually that duality showing the intertwinedness, and so both directions again.
And again, the balance is what we're talking about. We're talking about that's what we want to be. That's what the goal is for us. That it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's a perception by someone else that it's a negative. But we can bring that balance in our consciousness.
Last week, we were talking about Jamil and Janice and I, we were talking about water. And it dawned on me, well, what happened, I ended up doing a lot of research this week on ionized water. Anyway, you wanted to talk. It probably came from associating with you, picture on the truck. Anyway, I did a lot of research, and what just dawned on me the moment when you said balance is that this is probably one of the last vestiges of balance that we're going to have to deal with. And I got so into
This meaning
the ionized water.
water concept.
We are going to buy an ionizer for foundation. And we're going to do it because of the virtues of ionized water, and because it's one of those last vestiges to bring us into balance. Balance your pH, your weight goes down, your joints stop hurting, your blood pressure is under control, your diabetes, all kinds of stuff.
Your the conductivity of the electrical impulses, which affect
Everything.
your consciousness.
You think clearer, because currently the energy in our bodies is being used to try to keep the body's pH balanced. You know, what blood pH moves by 1/10, and you dead or unconscious. So you can't. So it's fighting to do that. And when you talk about balance, Barbara, it brought to mind that 83% of your blood is water, and we are 97% of our bodies are water. So if we can bring that into balance, how much more will we be balanced spiritually? Because now the body's conductivity is not geared toward maintaining this natural thing. It can now be projected towards bringing in spiritual light. So.
Interesting. Let's talk about that afterwards, because I've been doing some research this week as well.
Okay. I already got a machine chosen.
We're going to move on. There's a sidebar over here. We're going to move on to Matthew 5:7, which talks about blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. This word back again.
You said womb?
Womb
Oh,
repeatedly to the idea of birthing, of womb, of newness, of beginnings, of everything.
Yeah.
So it also means the other things too, guys: pity, love, compassion. compassion, those kinds of things
A
too.
womb.
But the ancient root is based in womb. Okay?
The word mercy?
Yes.
Okay.
And it has to do with a radiation from a core. So it has to do with
Also talks
So-
about controlling your thoughts and actions.
So everything brings us back to feminine energy. Womb.
And that resonates because if you remember when we were talking about what wisdom does and when the spark gets to understanding, that's where things are shaped and nurtured and that's where we give what shape in life to. That's where the creativity begins. In terms of manifestation of whatever it is that we've been thinking. It begins in that feminine aspect of the tree of life even.
I'm combining what's been said and I'm thinking about it. If its root is in womb and it has to deal with controlling your thoughts and actions, then it's saying right are those, because the womb makes space for life to develop safely.
Yeah.
So blessed are those
It
who
protects it.
Yeah, blessed are those who
Nurtures it.
harness their thoughts and ideas in a way that makes a protective environment for others. You see what I'm saying?
And that's the point. The point with mercy is that it's a twofold meaning. Because if you will remember, it's one of those attributes on the tree of life.
Yeah.
It's rooted and grounded in divine love.
Yeah.
And divine love not only gives whatever's needed to sustain you, but so that you can give to others.
So,
And that's what mercy is.
so your heart actually becomes a womb, a type of womb. And so as you perceive your thoughts in the womb, that is what determines who you are. So
And what you create externally too.
So this feminine energy moves us to this place of beginning. And masculine energy distracts us from it. So,
Can potentially distract us because I see masculine energy as what penetrated the feminine womb in the first place to place the seed there.
okay. I guess I'm looking at it from the point of dominance.
Yeah.
You know, male dominance. Male dominance has actually closed the womb, or
Okay.
you see, if not closed it, brought it to a point where it's negligible in terms of its effect, maybe.
So we deal with the other side. The other side, if we're dealing with this, then the other side of it, if we're dealing from the balance side, is that the masculine let's think about a man and a pregnant woman. His role is to make sure that that womb doesn't have to worry about anything other than being a womb. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's exactly what you're
So
saying.
the man, real job, masculine's role, or the man is to protect the womb so that they can focus on being what it is solely. If it's out of balance, then it's not taking care of that womb and
And it
putting too much work,
dominates and it-
dominates, controls.
So femininity now has to be, when it's on the rise, it's viewed as trying to dominate a male when actually it's looking for its place, its balance. So it's not actually being domineering at all. It's actually, it may appear that way, but that's not it. It's trying to find its balance.
Give an example.
If a female demands that a man respects her, the first thing comes to the average male's mind is, that woman not gonna rule over me. And she's not trying to rule over him, she's not trying to force him to do anything. Only thing she's doing is demanding respect, which means that she's trying to bring him back into balance and put herself in balance at the same time. You see what I'm talking about? Or for a male to tell a woman, she got to look a certain way before he can be attracted to her. That's totally out of balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because true wisdom, true masculinity will understand that, yeah, when I respect her, I'm doing right in my role. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
I remember when Phoebe was pregnant, and when she was pregnant at the time after we got married. I remember when she was pregnant, she said to me one day, "You don't want to go any place with me." I'm like, "Huh?" She said, "You're ashamed to be with me," because she was pregnant, right? And I'm like, I'm proud of this. Yeah, because I've always thought pregnant women are attractive. And at that point, I'm walking around with her like my chest stuck out. I look over there and do this. But what happened is women have been given that idea from males. The male didn't want to be around a pregnant woman because it was embarrassing to him. I don't know what it was, but I never experienced that. I don't know what I was supposed to feel based on what she was saying. You understand what I'm saying? But I have heard women say that they were big and out of shape and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you're supposed to be. You're pregnant. Yeah, I don't get it either. Shoot, I was happy.
I want another example more on masculine spiritual energy and feminine spiritual energy, like talking about that.
Can I put something with that?
Yeah.
Mercy's is it in the middle of the tree?
It's on the right side.
It's on the right side.
Is that the masculine side?
Yeah.
No, it's actually the feminine side.
The sides have switched over the years.
Yeah,
Okay.
you would think from the natural that it should be on the other side, but it is on the right side of the tree because the image of the tree is a person looking with the back toward you.
It depends on which sage and because they switch the size of tree switches.
Another example of feminine energy and masculine energy. In follow up to what you were saying,
Yes,
she
ma'am.
was asking a follow up question. So you get to answer.
What's your question?
Well, you weren't paying attention.
Yeah, I want you to repeat the question because I was distracted.
I was asking for another example of masculine versus feminine energy when we're talking about the spirituality of this thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I dealt with it from the heart thing
Yeah.
is because there is no such. The examples that we use between male and female as example, feminine and masculine energy are hollow at best. Because when I talked about the heart being a type of womb, that's in both of us, all of us. And when Bob talked about the maleness in inseminating or penetrating the womb to put the seed there, that's in both of us as well. When you receive, if Barbara says that when we were talking about the snake earlier, and we talked about as a deer panted after, that's a seed that you can receive. And that seed that you receive goes into your heart. It penetrates your heart. Now your heart is a womb, so now you're both male and female. So the masculine and feminine energy are at work in both of us at all times. And most of the time it goes unrecognized.
So what does the rise of feminine energy within ourselves, can you speak more of how that's taking place? Are you mean just being more receptive to what's going on externally as far as being more sensitive to these type of things, or?
I think it's a little of everything you said, actually. There has been an imbalance for so long in terms of the masculine energy, which manifested from the spiritual realm into the rap music with the denigrating women. I mean, everything that denigrates women is an imbalance of and manifestation of that imbalance into the spiritual. And so, I mean, you see more women in government, you see more women in the legislature, judicial, you see more women in lots of things, like Mother Teresa even arose in terms of the work that she was doing. And so it's an attempt to rebalance is what it is. It's an attempt. And that's despite, and that's in spite of this perceptual male dominance energy. The,
Oh, I wanted to say too, like
that means Jamel got yes.
what the rise of feminine spiritual energy looks like is everything opposite to the insecurities that women express surfacely, and everything opposite of the insecurities that males keep internally. Okay, so give me the thing. What do women deal with a lot on TV? Body image. These things are rooted in what? Not feeling comfortable with who and what you already are. You see, that's so when we're talking about the rise of feminine energy, it deals with being comfortable with the way that you feel, the way that you express yourself. It's opposite of masculine energy, because when a male approaches things, everything is linear, right? So the school system teaches you what? To memorize everything. Don't teach you how to creatively think, how to feel your way through stuff. It says memorize A, B, C, D, A, B, C. You know what I mean? But not to innovate and feel your way through things. It's not balanced. So when we deal with the rise of spiritual feminine energy, it has to do with the instead of being so left-brained and you know how when we face a problem, we want to get a manual that says, well, these are the steps. We almost don't have the ability to feel our way through things anymore. We're looking for somebody to tell us how to find love, tell us how to solve answers, tell us how to fix everything. But the feminine energy has to do with being able to intuitively feel and allow the answers to rise within you. It has to do with being comfortable with the unique image of who you are, how you speak, how you are an expression of the Creator. So I say that to say that the rise of spiritual feminine energy is the opposite of the insecurities that you see women talk about all the time to men and women. Does that make sense? It's about becoming more secure with who you already are, regardless of all of these things that are encouraged that you have to put upon yourself.
So, and regardless of all of the external definitions of what's been labeled, your follow-up and then on.
So I guess just to push it a little further, it's getting more comfortable in the fact of what's on the board, like what I'm speaking, I'm creating, what I'm thinking, I'm actually vibrating, and and it's taking more of that responsibility for that.
I've got Ron and then you and then Hester.
I was just thinking, listening to what Jamel was saying, from a male perspective, femininity, I think we don't understand the difference between being tender and being soft. We're afraid if we're going to be soft or come across as being soft, and we don't know how to be tender, so we can't be as creative as we should be. Yeah, because we put up a guard to only let a certain part of our personality show to other people, no matter if it's a loved one or not. We're afraid of appearing to be weak or soft, and we need to make a, kind of, I guess, define the difference between those two.
And who's that appearance to that we're afraid of being weak? To the individual as well as to those who see what
to
we
the
do?
individual first. To the individual first, but yeah, especially to females. And it's because we don't know the difference.
And then the female says, he just didn't get it.
Yeah.
He doesn't get it that I want tenderness. I don't see that as softness. I see that as tenderness.
We try to pull the things that have been said together. It also, it has to do with that, I don't want to say innermost, but who you really are. And how Jamil was saying as far as balance, and as you were saying, that wound. That wound is what is the higher part. And so the rest of it in the lower part is a servant to it, not to control it with the linear thought, etc., in which creativity is that innermost. Not innermost, but the higher self. So instead of trying to dictate what it does or rule it, you're supposed to let it, do what it's supposed to do, or do whatever it's going to do as far as being creative, etc. And one of the words for mercy in the Hebrew is kapareth, and it has to do with the Ark of the Covenant, and it was just supposed to cover the Ark of the Covenant, protect it. So the big thing is protecting it. So all the things that we naturally think about mercy, that's how we're supposed to feel about our higher self, and basically just let it be free, etc. And just know the lower self is to protect that.
Yes.
I don't think that we are expected to show mercy, but we are to be mercy. And when it talks about being merciful, we are supposed to be a covering that protects everything and everyone. The whole idea, I think mercy is kind of sort of reflective of stewardship. We can't talk about mercy or any other attributes in the abstract any longer. I think we have to begin to view them as who we are. That way we don't, if we do that, then we're not detached from it. And the more we recognize it as who we are, the more we begin to realize not whose we are as much as we are Elohim, with all of the other attributes, that go with that, El Shaddai, etc.
I want to share something too, because this is just an example of what you said. It took me like 2 years in marriage, and I still be having to come back to it. I remember we would get in arguments, and as a male, I was like, I've done everything logically. I've asked you every logical question, Yeah. So I was like, so I'm done. I shut down. You know what I mean? Now, what I didn't get, and it took me 2 years to get to this point, was that she wasn't looking for any logical, well, I've done this or do this. It was a feeling that vibrates from who I was. You see what I'm saying? But the reason I acted like that is because that's male thinking. Do y'all feel what I'm saying? I was male thinking. I was saying, look, I've asked every logical question. What's the problem? I asked you nicely about it. There's nothing resolved here. There's nothing else for me to do.
Now, listen to what you just said. That's prayer. That's what we've been praying.
Yeah.
We be praying logically, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
But when after you've been married for a long time, you begin to vibrate with it.
Yeah.
No logical questions, no logical answers. You feel what she want to hear, or what she wants you to do, and you do it.
Yeah.
And there's no logic. Don't have to be any logic to it at all.
Because you got to get on the same vibration rather than trying to think it all
That's
out.
right.
I had to
That's right.
sometimes learn it was just a feeling.
Yeah.
A feeling that I needed to,
But you know what's
understanding I had to connect to.
You know what's funny? It was not vibration to her.
Mm-mm.
It was logical to her.
To her, it was
Yeah.
illogical to me. It
But-
still is.
But it's,
But I learned it.
yeah, and the more you learn that, the more you will become one with the Creator.
Yeah.
Because when someone asks me the question, if we are Elohim, who do we pray to? And my response to that was, you have not yet understood the concept of prayer. Because when you say, who do I pray to, is who do I communicate with, who do I talk to? When the concept of prayer is not about talking, it's about vibrating, it's about rhythm.
Aligning yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing with you and Joy. It's about rhythm.
But this is my other point with that, because I didn't want to make that sound bad.
It's not.
The point is when I came into that it allows you to come into a womb with yourself, and it expands how you understand people now.
Yes.
Because I think it has to deal with what you're talking about with the tenderness. Because you get past the thing about wanting to harden yourself to how you think, and it makes you receptive to other things.
Yeah.
So like now,
So joy is the mirror
Yes.
that begins to expose
yeah,
that other part of
yeah,
your consciousness
yeah.
that you haven't been using very much or have not been.
I didn't know how, but
So-
check in Genesis, and Rosemary talked about, Bunny talked about this. The word for man and woman in Genesis, when it talks about a male made he, Elohim, this is something Bunny talked about. It talks about man name being memory or thought, remembrance, right? But the name for woman has a root into pierce. So the woman triggers, in the physical, a man
Triggers the
penetrates the woman.
Right.
But in the spiritual, it's the woman who triggers and opens up the life in the man. Because he has to open up now. what he is rather than keeping himself contained. You know, his womb, the womb of his thinking has to be opened by that mirror. You know, but if you don't submit to that and you just say, well, I said what I need to say, I said it nice, we talked about it, then you don't allow that piercing to occur. You don't allow balance to be triggered in yourself.
You're working it out, boy. You're working it out.
Yes, you know, let me go there.
So instead of discordant notes and noise in your family, it's becoming more rhythmical.
Yeah, most definitely.
More music is being played in that family.
May I ask a question before you roll on? So,
You
from
knew where I was going.
me?
You knew where I was going. Get ready to roll on.
Okay, before you roll on. Speaking from the like a joy perspective, not to throw you out there, but like, I think sometimes there's the assumption that male attitude isn't in physical females, and as far as relating to the creators. What
That
I'm
it
saying
isn't.
that it isn't, yeah, because for it to manifest in situations like Joy and Jamil, that means it's inside too. So trying to push into how we are not vibrating with the essence of who we are in the rhythm. Do you get where you get what I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
So the lesson is not only for Janelle but for Joy as well. And there's some, I mean, we both have masculine and feminine aspects, in our consciousness, and so the point, a woman can be out of balance as well.
But I think, because we talked about this before, that it's easier, like, you know, that's why churches are filled with women because of the emotional aspect of feeling things.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I still struggle with relating just to just going with the vibe, the flow of things.
As opposed to what?
Trying to logically
Okay.
figure it
Yeah,
out.
okay,
You know,
okay.
like how we pray
So-
that we pray so linearly, like, okay, I want, need, desire, X, you know.
But you know, go ahead, Pastor.
One thing, that's because we're in a male-dominated society.
Exactly.
The world is dominated by males. That's why. That's the reason. You're trying to be a male. Because that's the only thing that's acceptable. And Joe saying to Jamil, I refuse.
Yeah, she refused.
Yeah.
True that.
I mean, you know, I've been down that road, you know. People sit there like she don't say nothing, but
I mean, I kind of feel where you're
It's the
coming from
looks.
because
Yeah.
as a woman,
Right,
in having been in a world in terms of work dominated by men,
Yes.
and in order to climb that corporate ladder, if you will, sort of thing, there are certain parts of you that you repressed, and you took on those things those attributes that were, quote unquote, in the natural, more dominant kinds of, more male, masculine kinds of things in order to be perceived as not that harping woman, but that objective woman. And sometimes you overbalance that trying to achieve that when you know, I mean, we still have both of those in us. And you're right, we've still got to balance that. And I can't tell you how to balance that, except that they're going to continue to be mirrors put in your face for you to see that and to deal with it.
But when there's a man, it's strength. When there's a woman, it's nagging. You know, I mean, that's the kind of society we live in. And it's crazy, but it's the truth. So what happens is you have to, I think, take what's being received, what you're being offered, receive it, experience it, and when the opportunity to present themselves for you to act masculine, resist them. Because at some point, someone has to say, that's not who I am, and I'm not going there. But we are told, especially females are told, if you're gonna make it in this world, these are the things that you're gonna have to do. You know, so you go give up your femininity for some dollars? Because that's exactly what career's about. So we have to make a decision. It's not gonna happen.
I think it's not just about the money. I mean, it's choosing whether or not you're going to be heard sometimes.
Attention, yeah.
So you have to give up what you're seeking from those people. Does that make sense? It's not just the money that you have to give up, or that you have to not be concerned about anymore.
It makes sense. It does. It makes sense.
Because you will be
The promotion or whatever.
ignored.
Yeah.
You know, you will be disrespected. I mean, that's just part of relating that way.
Or
Yeah.
being heard might be the idea that you have that sets whatever this experience is in the organization or wherever, sets it on a right course. Instead of being ignored, being heard from you might be what it needs to set it on a right course, on a righter course. But
That's a little
but
word.
it's not just us having to find our way. It's folk who are dealing with us, who are part of us, who have to also find the way. And so sometimes being true to ourselves, even though we don't see it right now, may be what's needed down the road for someone in the organization, someone in the home, wherever. That seed is planted to grow and come up, and they will begin to act according to who they really are, instead of, and that's so convoluted, I just lost myself.
And I think we're touching on something, because I think what we kind of maybe have to realize here, we haven't been creating environments for each other to know what it is to be a woman or a man. We've just had stuff passed down to us. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so I see in that when we look at the relationships that are constantly broken, in our communities, it's because nobody has been providing wombs for each other to know what is femininity and man. You know what I'm saying? How do you teach a little girl to be comfortable with who she is, all parts are, and who teaches the male to do the same thing? So I think that in us talking about blessed, ripened, or the merciful, that we have to realize that one of our biggest roles is to learn how to become wombs for each other, to redevelop naturally, to start drawing out and nurturing who each other are, so that we can start to have better mirrors to get out of the imbalance.
I think it's important to note that our discussing this is on the fringes of something. One of the worst states in the country for domestic abuse is South Carolina. And now South Carolina has a female governor.
Yeah.
Whether you like or not, it doesn't matter. The point is, it has a female governor, and she's there for a reason. In a good old boy system, male-dominated society, where women barefooted and pregnant, and if she say too much, you can slap her, and the police go pat you on the back and say that's okay. That's basically South Carolina. Now, that's changing, and I think that with that being in place, we're discussing this because it is necessary to come to a place, Jamil, where we begin to not necessarily define femininity and masculinity, but to recognize it when we see it. Because anything that you define, you put a box in, you put your own spin on it. But to recognize it when we see it, and to express an appreciation for it.
So when we started talking about mercy, we said that it was a dual kind of thing, that not only did we receive it, but it was a purpose in receiving it, so that we can show it and give it. And so it's like Pastor was saying, we become that mercy. When you're overflowing with something, you can't help but share it and give it. So again, mercy is rooted in also the divinity, from the aspect of the tree of life and from love itself. Again, the compassion itself. A couple of Aramaic, and this, this reminds us of like God received to give, we receive to give. Same thing, same concept. Blessed are they who from their inner wombs birth mercy. They shall feel its warm arms embrace them. Blessed are those who from their inner wombs birth mercy. They shall feel its warm arms embrace them. So it's almost like a cup that never gets empty. Align with the one are the compassion, and upon them shall be compassion. Healed are those who extend a long, heartfelt breath whenever needed. They shall feel the heat of cosmic ardor, the breath of source of all life.
Cosmic what?
Ardor, A-R-D-O-R.
Oh, okay.
Matthew 5:8.
No, got a question. No, that's what you.
Well, you're probably going to come back and have that question again anyway, so it doesn't matter. I don't know if it was it was the Lord's Prayer. Heart has to do with, from the Greek word cardia, and it has to do with the core or the center of something. And so when we find the center or the core of a being is spirit. Would you agree with that or not? Does that resonate? The center or core of us as beings is spirit. So it carries the sense of radiation of life. It has the sense of, from that core, if you look at the physical heart, it carries blood that's nourished with oxygen through all parts of the body. Not only major organs, but to every single minuscule blood vessel, capillary, whatever. So that when we look at it from the spiritual, if heart means the core of being, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. When I have spirit as my core, what it means is that I can see. Let me do pure first. Pure has to do with a cleaning out of, a cleanness, a clarity, kind of thing. So that it says then that something has happened so that this cosmic ignorance that I have had that obscured my vision of who I really am, and that's what we're doing right now. We're getting rid of those veils of ignorance, whatever they are, that hide who we really are, the core, the divine spark of who we really are. So, and what it means is that we're taking the steps simply by being aware of it, and then after being aware of it being it. So it's not only being aware of it, but when I know that that what I say to you has hurt your feelings, when I consciously know that, and I know that I'm responsible for that, and that those words carry power, then I have a responsibility also. And I'm not talking about, my motive was really to hurt his feelings. My motive wasn't to hurt his feelings so he'll see a bigger picture. My motive was just to hurt his feelings. A selfish motive. Once I come into awareness and knowledge of that, when I'm centered, when I get to the point where I'm centered, I've got to be more careful. We were talking when we first came in about words and thoughts and things like that. We have more of a responsibility now. We cannot just haphazardly come out of the mouth or our actions be perceived as being hurtful or wrongful. So pureness of heart has to deal with being aware of and being in touch with and flowing in the consciousness of the God in me. In me, meaning my consciousness. That I am He and I am it and it is me. So, to be centered is to be established in the pure consciousness of the source of all being. Blessed are the pure in heart. Pureness in heart also is on the Tiferet. It's on the, in terms of the tree of life, and Tiferet is at the as the place where you have access spiritually to all that's above in terms of awareness and consciousness, as well as all that's below in terms of awareness and consciousness. So when you come from that center with a pure heart, means with a clean heart, nothing covers it, nothing veils it. Pure in heart means that you be freed from all those veils of ignorance that cover up the spirit, that cover up who you really are.
So then, it's even looking past your values and beliefs
Oh, yeah.
and doing the right thing because
Oh,
it's the
yeah.
right thing to
Oh,
do.
yeah. Yeah. You left those behind. That's
Yeah.
that's part of the clearing away. Clearing away.
Okay.
It has to. It's even more. It has to do with motive then, because I'm not doing it from the motive of selfishness and the screen of my own ego, etc.
Once you break pure down further towards the root in the Hebrew, it also means to shine or to be bright.
What it is? Is it a halal?
Tahir.
Okay.
So when those mirrors are, the Zen Buddhists talk about spirit. They liken it to mirrors, and the mirror is under there, but it's got so much dust and grime and debris on it that it cannot. You cannot see in it. See out of
It's
it.
funny because it goes right back to that to the previous verse though, when we were talking about the womb.
Mm-hmm.
We're still talking about pretty much the same thing.
They expand out of each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the heart is,
Uh-huh.
the root word for it is hollow.
Yeah.
There you go. What is a womb but a hollow?
Yeah.
But the Zen Buddhist says it's not the mirror that's bad. Just clean it off. Get all of the stuff off of it and polish it up, and it's as good as new. I mean, our spirit is covered under all of the debris of how many lifetimes for some of us. Did you have any?
That was-
You think it processing?
That debris is just all that linear stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All that
And
what?
I said that
Oh, that
debris
what?
is all the linear stuff, the stuff that we put on it, trying to direct it and force it to do what we want it to do.
Mhm.
That's what that
you're talking
debris
about, the
is.
male dominance.
Yes.
That's that
Yeah.
massive, what we've been trying to control.
I mean, if you look at it as well, just like if you look at all of the indigenous cultures across the world, you don't have that same balance with masculinity and femininity. The feminine, they actually hold up and they
What do you
actually
mean? You
play
don't have
it.
that same imbalance?
Exactly.
Okay.
You don't have that necessarily have that male just ruling over all the women. The women are looking at as being spiritual and being very important and vital, and the men more so just do the protecting.
Of the physical
Yeah.
bodies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're respected, the woman is respected as the heart of the nation. You know, because when you look at indigenous cultures, the holy men are usually chosen by the grandmothers, not by the males. And the overall policy is developed by the grandmothers and is put into play by the elders. The discussions that they have is based upon what they receive from the elder females in the culture. But with us, we have the hollow places in the female. We filled it up with us. You know, male trying to make a woman be what he is. You go marry yourself. You trying to make her be what you want her to be.
In some Native American cultures, they hold women so highly that a non-homosexual male will be happy, like if, let's say the wife dies, to play that role in the family and be her dad, just to do the women duties, etc. Because they hold them up in and high self-esteem. And this is a perfectly,
So you're talking
That's
about
right.
it's beyond the physical gender, is what I heard you say, when you tried to define it by saying non-homosexual male. You're
Yeah.
saying it gets beyond physical gender.
just holding that up in
Attributes.
high esteem and not trying to control that or not trying to force it to be male. Because realistically, that's what males do in the society. They're
Yeah.
forcing females to be male-like.
But that goes back too, because all of the cultures like that. When slavery began here, they outlawed a particular ritual where the son at 13, bar mitzvahs all through the cultures, the son would walk around the mother counterclockwise
Yes.
until he felt that all of his childhood was out of him. And then when he stopped, and they'd be playing the drums, the community around him, when he stopped, he would say, from this point forward, I will never engage in any activity that will bring dishonor to you. Now they had the daughters of other families around and the sons, so this was burnt into their consciousness. The reason they took the drums out and they took that out was because the rebellions were so damaging. The slave revolts were so damaging to the money machine of slavery. So, but it kept. What I'm saying that is that they unified communities around honoring the mother, and so in honoring the mother, that son now could not disrespect his wife because that would dishonor the mother. He could not disrespect his sisters or his daughters, so it was all tied.
Or probably
through
anybody
honoring the
else's
womb.
sisters.
But-
Right, or anybody else.
But and that was still in play up until the last generation. I mean, because males revered their mama, regardless of how they felt about them. They didn't go through the rituals, but it was burned into the consciousness. On TV, hi mom. The idea that you don't talk about my mama, that kind of thing. So it's been ingrained there. We just began to lose it. When we look at other cultures, we allow a culture that's in decline to tell other cultures how to treat their female. How you go tell somebody in Saudi Arabia how to treat their female, and the females want to be treated or agree with how they're being treated in many cases? How you going to tell a Native American how to treat their females when their females are held in high regard? So it's like we look at other cultures, and because they don't do what we do, it's all wrong. When in essence, they're in greater balance than we are. Because of the hollowness that's there. What is the hollowness of? What is it about? It's about preparing a place to receive the best of everything that's to be offered. And that womb and that woman passes it on to the subsequent generations, which means that mankind gets better as opposed to worse.
So when we come from a place of pureness in heart, and we see God in ourselves, we see ourselves as God, but we also see Spirit in everything else. So then, this word see also comes from the word optimal, which is like mercy. It has a dual meaning. It says, not only do I see, but I am seeing. That's what it means. Not only do I see, but I am seeing. So blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So when I see the source of all life in everything, and I am the source of all life, and I see it in me as well, the focus always stays on the source of all life. Does that resonate? Blessed are the pure in heart, they shall see God. Different revelation, different aspect. Aligned with the one are those whose lives radiate from a core of love. They shall see God everywhere. Pure in heart, blessed are those who have awakened in God, is another way you can say that. Awaken in God, meaning the consciousness awakened to the fact that I am God and God is me. and again, don't. It's not meaning I am all that the source of all life is in terms of that source created me. But there is so much that we are missing out on because we don't understand the Beautitudes. Because the Beautitudes speak directly to the spiritual aspect of who we are. That's what the Beautitudes do. That's the difference between the Ten Commandments, which have that dual role of speaking to the manifested physical as well as the spiritual. There is no aspect in the Beatitude the Beautitudes that I see that speaks to it always speaks to the spiritual directly. This is a good one coming up. Blessed are peacemakers. Oh, you got a question?
You're trying to go to 8. I mean, no.
I certainly am.
Nah.
I guess.
No, I just wanted to, I was just thinking about the scripture as you were talking and just thinking, right is the person who knows themselves, their higher self, because they see themselves as God. So, is it, when you see God, is you see yourself, and you notice as you become more in touch with yourself, that's when you see God as yourself. So it's not something internally you say, "Oh, I see God." It's like not who he was looking for earlier today. Come stand by his bed.
Well, you know, that's when I think it was a couple of years ago. Well, it's been a number of years ago when I think I shared with you the fact that when I was walking in the rain, I saw all different colors of green that I never saw before. I became aware of the beat of the rain on my umbrella and the way it sounded when it hit the ground on the grass as opposed to the pavement, as opposed to the different resonance on the soil, and that's the essence of seeing God in everything and God in Himself.
Because you're also seeing it once you get to that point, like you said, though, you're not seeing some angelic figure, but you're also seeing it in everything you see. So you see it in all these people you encounter every day.
And
the same person in your face cursing you out, but you still see that that person is still God, even though they may not
Plug my
realize
ears
it.
at that. and you can see all those lessons. The lessons are the messages. You know, I talked about this bird that, when I was walking, and I would walk every morning. There's a bird that sits on the line that would greet me with the song. Of course, the bird always sang, but it was singing to me that, when it greets me. Or the bird that had a nest on the ground. What do you call those? Something kills. No, but anyway, it laid its nest on the ground. And every time I would get too close, it would do that and swell up, just, to distract me, to make me, walk further away. And I would walk further away. There are lessons in all of that, messages in all of life that we miss because we're so distracted. This pureness in heart reminds us, and sort of like it fine-tunes these things again to bring us back in focus, in a sense. You're not through yet?
I'm just reminded of something. This deals with mercy and pureness of heart. Something Kathy said to me last week, and I don't think she minds me sharing this, but she was talking about her school, and she's been there for 20 years, right? And she's, over the years, put together programs. She just creates it. Somebody say, I need this, or we need to do that. She put them together, and so, not that she's gotten credit for a lot of them, but people call her and say, hey, remember this program you put together? Remember you did this? Do you still have that? And she'll put it together for them. And, they'll go somewhere and present it. And what I'm saying is, people recognize recognize who you are. That they recognize the pureness of it. They see it. They don't always give you credit for it. They may not always give you credit for your femininity, but they recognize it. And they'll use it to their advantage probably, but they do see it. And I'm willing to say that, I bet everybody in here, that if there's something that you feel passionate about, something you're good at, everybody recognizes that in you. And everybody use that. You see what I mean? So it's there, and it's human nature to see it, to see the pureness, the brightness of it, that it is there, but it's not really up to us to do anything but to be it. You know what I mean?
So you don't turn it off just because you don't get the
Right.
credit for it. You
Correct.
simply continue to.
If it's your passion, you continue to do it. So I guess because I'm guilty of it as well, is to not get frustrated by these things, but just continue to be. You know, it is being recognized. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Because I'm hearing what the ladies are saying about femininity. I think, this is my opinion, the thing that turns a man around, not you trying to be like him, but being feminine.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the mirror that he's going to see.
It's almost like they're laying out the treasures, because the treasures on the earth would be to get the credit for it and to get the accolades for it. But to understand that even though it was something you created and someone saw it in you to ask you for it, you don't get the credit. But if that truth or that entity is being used in another setting and affects someone else, you know, it'll be laid up to your good. You may not succeed in the physical.
It's no different than here when, you know, people don't say it. If you have people in your job or wherever that may not ever talk to you till they get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and then they come to you. Why? They it's there and they know it, but they don't recognize until they need it. You know?
Right. 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be planted, that which is cultivated, nourished, that which is harvested, that which is celebrated. Peacemaker does, in the Aramaic, brings up all of those images. It's that planting image, and not only that planting image, but to get fruit from that, from whatever it was that's planted. So, what is peace? Peace can be a greeting, yes. Peace can be shalom, you know. May you have inner balance, because that's basically what shalom. May there be inner balance in your life. That says a lot. Peace can mean health and safety. It can mean quietness, rest. Yes, that. It can mean a mutual agreement that saves a difficult situation, like somebody's at negotiation, mediation kind of thing. It can mean harmony and balance. It can mean a stroke that unites all parties in sympathy. All of that is what's peace. So when you plant all that stuff, the expectation is that, and you nurture that you're going to get something from it. So blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemakers is one of those words like mercy that has a dual meaning. Not only am I a peacemaker, but I am peace. It is not what I do, but it suggests not only that I do it, but that it's the frequency and it's the consistency with which I do it. And so having to do that, I become what it is I plant. Resonate, sort of, it's a dual meaning. Yes, sir.
They're looking at peace in the primary root. It's wholeness. So in order for you to plant peace, you got to be whole. If you don't feel comfortable with who you are, then you can't be a peacemaker, because you can't make what you're not.
It's balancing all of those. Remember all the voices inside of you, and and bringing them into harmony, in a sense. And you can't set that harmony or give that harmony to someone else when when you don't have it.
And notice now, and out of all the things I read about from the Aramaic especially, we take it differently from the Western culture. We're always trying to silence the voices, but the Aramaic balances the voices. It's not silencing them, that's an impossibility, but it's about balancing them so that the confusion is minimized.
It's giving them all the opportunity to speak in us, and
Yes.
taking the light
Right. From each,
from each one of them.
yeah. Bobby, that looks you.
I just listen to what Pastor just said. I guess I think a peacemaker. You think about somebody standing in between, because who you making peace for? You know. So you think about two parties. So you're being visible, or you're shining again for somebody else. You're being an example or wholeness for somebody else to take. I guess to emulate. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at all of these that we've kind of gone through, and none of these. The part that's for you is the desire to do it for others. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because in every one of these, you're being enlightenment for those who are around you who may have needs.
But you've hit on what we're talking about in the Beautitudes when we say it talks to the Spirit, and the Spirit is the image and likeness of God. The Creator created for the sake of giving.
Yeah.
So we receive everything in here is not for us only. It is for us to receive and balance it in ourselves, but not to hoard it, but to share it. John?
I think about who we look at as peacemakers, or who have been peacemakers in the past, and from a religious standpoint or ancient standpoint, you have people like Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi. You even have people like the Dalai Lama today. And if we look at it in our culture and what we're very familiar with, we look at grandmothers as well. So when you think about it, from a sense, those people have reached that level of wholeness, and they actually, a lot of times, to go back with what we've been just talking about, they've reached a certain point where they're not on the same, I guess you would say, level, and even in their views and how they see everything, where they've reached a level of wholeness.
There's an organization, I don't know the name of it, but it's, they agitate politically for women to be involved in the peace process, because they've noticed that if women are at the negotiating table, the peace lasts longer. Because they say the men are more concerned about sharing power and resources, and the women want to see schools built and roads, and they're more concerned about the society being stable.
So they look beyond just the vision to make it, to nurture it, and to manifest it. They look beyond the words, because words can.
Anthropology has even shown that cultures that where the women have more say so and are more so empowered, you have less disparity in wealth, and you have a lot less violence. So that has already been shown. Yeah.
So men, allow that feminine part of you to manifest, and women, balance the masculine part with your feminine part as well. Everything in balance is good.
I was thinking about too, just how you can sense it just in conversations. Like, if you ever see someone who's looking, they had a problem, dire problem, and they go to someone else and they ask that person, but that person just said, "Oh, I got the same problem too," and they get back into their self. Whereas if you have a peacemaker, when that person takes their problem to the peacemaker has a way of allowing that person to figure their problem out themselves by moving themselves out of the way. You know what I mean? They move themselves out of the way and only interject when it gives an opportunity to bring in that wholeness that the peacemaker or, you know. So I just kind of thought about it in that sense of even how when we interact, that we can gauge our motives, and are we just trying to get you know, our own satisfaction out of somebody else's problem, or are we trying to give space so that, you know what, let's instead of pull myself back out of the way and only interject on what they need, you
Do
know?
we escalate something, or do we
Yeah.
allow it to stabilize and reach its own balance?
That scripture about, I don't know where it is, but about us standing in the gap. What does that say? Does that have to do,
That's in Ezekiel.
does that have to do with the peacemaker?
I don't know, because I need to know what was around it.
It had to
Standing in the
do,
gap for what?
had to do with Israel being estranged from God. And he was looking for a man to stand in the gap to bring them back to him. That's what,
Is that a peacemaker?
That is right. Yeah, I think it is.
I think it's in Ezekiel.
That's
Yeah,
got about
it's
20,
Ezekiel
30 chapters.
22:30.
Okay.
And it says, and I sought for a man among them that should make up the marriage and stand in the gap before me for the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found none.
Yeah.
But is that talking about a peacemaker?
I believe so.
Well,
If
yeah,
that-
yeah.
it's someone who, if there's a disparity of some type, this person stands in the gap to sort of like realign that disparity, to make it no longer a disparity, but a whole, yeah.
If you look at the next verse, it says, therefore, it says that in 22:30, it says, I did not find that man.
Yeah.
Now, the next verse says, therefore I have poured out my indignation upon them. I have consumed them with the fire of my wrath. So it's saying that, you know, there just needed to be someone who could convey the wisdom of the Creator, who could make space for people to become whole, but there wasn't a balanced person there. And so therefore, people were destroyed in their own passions, in their own selfishness.
You just, bless you, talked about something that peacemakers has to do with it. You have to make space for that to occur. Let me finish up with, they shall be called. Blessed are the peacemakers, those who plant peace, who cultivate it, who nurture it, meaning I live it. For they shall be called. Shall be called has the image of a digging a well or a channel, or carving out of, if you will. It's like creating a space for water to go through. Well, as you talked about, when you talked about Adam and what that meant, and the sap, or the essence of God flowing, it's the same thing. When we become peacemakers, that's why it says we shall be called children of God. What are children? Children are the emanations, or the thoughts of something before it manifests. But this is a thought of God. Peacemakers are in line with God's thinking. So when we become peacemakers, we shall be called the children of God. We become the vessel, we become the tool, we become the conduit for the divine to flow through. Whether it's wisdom, whatever it needs, whatever is needed in that situation that is unbalanced or out of kilter, or that's, even if there's no love or there's no compassion, whatever peace means, all of those things, we can become that conduit when we listen to the wisdom that's already inside of us, inside of our consciousness, all part of our consciousness. Did you have something, or were you thinking?
So blessed are the ripe are the peacemakers, for they shall become image and likeness. The image and likeness of their higher self.
Become, or they are the image and likeness?
That's what I'm toying with.
Well, the shall be called
Shall be called.
implies that it's an image of digging, and so others, it's almost like you are that, and
So
others,
shall be
yeah.
channels for the children of God then.
and others externally see that.
Okay.
They see that this person is a peacemaker. This person, wherever they come, they bring peace.
They make a space for other people to become sons of God. the sons of God that they already are,
Yeah.
right?
By being the peacemaker and connecting them, that is an opportunity, yes, for that other individual to,
So the peacemaker
Real.
recognizes he's God.
yes.
Okay.
And look at
The
this.
essence of God flows through.
Right.
And I like it because it's like saying that when it's talking about called or being hewn out, you know, part of that process is that person being a peacemaker. By you offering wholeness to people, you are allowing yourself
To be home.
to be whole.
Yeah.
You're hewing yourself out by offering peace and wholeness to
In
others.
other words, you create, that space is already there, so you've
Yeah.
gotta have the space already in order for it to flow and then to be service to someone else.
So you're healing yourself out and you're healing someone else out at the same
Exactly. It's
time.
multidimensional.
So I guess what I'm getting to is this, that keep it in mind, every time we say creator, now I'm at a point where I don't think of Elohim. When we say creator, I think of either a womb, whether she, beginning, father, but now I'm not thinking of, Elohim anymore. When
You
we
see
talk about
yourself as Elohim and.
Yes. So when you recognize Elohim is actually the channel, you see? Because what happened with Elohim? Elohim created Adam, right? He created this channel for the essence of his being to flow. And the essence of his being flowed to a place where it began to make decisions for itself. And in doing so, it perceives itself as being separated from the original source and further subdivided itself. That makes sense? Okay. So now it's bringing it back together, right? Okay.
Does King James say children of God, or does it say sons of God?
It says the children.
King James say children.
But the word means, even in Greek, means son.
Son.
Yes, son.
And I
It's
just
who
wondering,
else?
do we need to talk about that distinction? Because when we talk about mercy, we talk about the pagan part, and I talking about the son, so we're talking about the life giver, right? The part of you that gives life or shows life to others. That's just seems to me like it just goes in line with what you were saying. I'm just trying to think this out.
I mean, basically it is, because what you receive, you're giving or imparting to someone else, which is a masculine kind of. But women can also have that masculine attribute.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's an attribute. It's not talking,
Yeah.
gender-wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
So in essence, and even when we talk about having received something, actually is recognizing that we've already received it. Because the receiving of it came at the beginning. And so now it's not so much of us receiving again as it is recognizing what we've already received. And I'm not actually giving it to Andre, or I'm not actually giving it to Jamil. What I'm doing is helping him to recognize what he's already received. You see? So I think linguistically we have to begin to speak differently so we can start thinking different.
Because it's basically, when you look at it, saying there is nothing we don't already have.
Oh,
Yeah, you just
yeah.
becoming aware of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and knowing that you have limitless to give. You have
Yeah.
abundance to give, not any limits.
That's that thing I was making reference to with Elohim, the unlimited potential. Unrestricted potential is who we are. So when I say if I'm unrestricted potential, then that doesn't mean you're not. It may mean that you were where I once was, not recognizing it.
Yes.
And even in knowing it, at the point where I am, I believe this with all my fiber and my being, but at the same time, it's very, very difficult to actualize it because of the cultural upbringing and the religious shackles that I'm still trying to be free from.
That's what I was saying. Everyone is that person, and they just don't realize that that's who they are yet.
But I just thought about something. That's why the serpent bite is what brings us to this. You see what I'm saying? It's when you feel pain, it makes you recognize where you are, but more so what you want to get free from.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
the serpent brings the serpent makes you realize your limitation. Because if you get bit by a serpent, you start thinking about how much my life expectancy. You think about what all have I been before I got bit. Am I gonna make it after this bite? You know what I mean?
Figure out what it's worth.
Yeah. So when you talking about the religion and the culture, that's
Yeah.
the bite that the Creator has allowed us to be bitten by to lead us back to this limitlessness, this abundance that we have that we haven't been looking at, or we haven't been disciplined enough to see is already there.
And whether you know it or not, you just jump to 5, 10,
But actually,
11, and 12.
you know what you just said, don't you? When you said actually disciplined enough, we have not been discipled enough to, you know, to see it.
That's similar to what Mark, the point he was making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get hit by the 2x4.
Yeah.
Because that's what 5, 10, and 11 taken together talk about. It says, blessed are you when you're persecuted for righteousness. That it's the inner journey that you need to be focusing on, and not the external. That's what that's what the persecution, and some of the persecution is not necessarily external, it's internal. It's that ego thing too.
Self-persecution.
Yeah, self-persecution as well. And so, all of those things are there for a reason. They are to get our attention. Remember we were talking about Tiferet and talking about the thing that has to kick us to sometimes force us or push us to the next level. These things can be that catalyst that help us to not only begin that inward journey, because we're already on it, but to even broaden that territory of that inward journey in terms of our consciousness.
Okay. That's interesting.
What the world side of y'all on, man?
The root of persecute is pursue.
We have to keep going.
Yeah, pursue.
We
Those who persecute you, who are pursuing you for reasons, you know?
And it's I mean, and some of the words that we can use today is hound. Hound means to pursue someone.
Yeah.
To hassle
We sitting
you.
on the same road next time.
Y'all have to take your sidebar.
I'm sorry, Bob.
Either share it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But this is talking about for selfish reasons or to do you harm or to silence you, right? Persecute is not just pursue. I might be pursuing you for other reasons.
No, but the pursuit is yes, for those reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get you off course, to silence you, to get you out of the picture. It also has something that relates to a smearing of shameness, whatever it takes
Right.
to try to detract from you and to bring you down.
Right.
That's part of what persecution is.
And it's actually pursuing you without a physical chase. It's actually, you know, it can be pursuing you through challenging.
Okay.
It doesn't take all of that, you know?
Yeah.
We generally think of persecution more as accusing you of something. You know, saying you did something that,
That's part of it
you know,
too.
though it's part, it's more to it,
Yes.
to the actual persecution than that, you know?
I guess where I was going with it, in order for me to pursue you with that type of vigor, I had to recognize something. You see, I had to come to a point to recognize something in you, or it's not even going there. It's just.
Well, you don't have to come to that point to recognize it. It could be a subconscious recognition. Example, the persecution that I received when I began teaching what I teach was not just from people who recognized that there was something there, but also from people who felt threatened. Their positions were threatened. You see?
Or even too, I think about like how we persecute ourselves when we get on a particular path. Our insecurities start persecuting us because you say you have always failed in this, and you start remembering that, or those inadequacies come up when you start to pursue the height of the experience of who you are.
When we were talking about the sight and stuff, and Janice had all the questions, and our response was, you know what, that's up to you. Whatever you and Brian come up with, hey, we're cool with that. It's a subtle thing, but it's subtle self-persecution. You see, because of not feeling that you're adequate enough for the task.
Well, and it's that inner persecution of the ego thing that can be harder to pick up on. That's what you're talking about. Because that is the goal of the ego, to deceive and to do things so subtly. So it's a lot easier to pick up on an external kind of persecution, somebody who's in to do you in, than ourselves. We continue to hit ourselves with the same thing over and over again, or to denigrate ourselves over and over again, or to question ourselves over and over again in a sense too. So we can use the force of seeming opposition to fuel our inner journey. I like that. To fuel our inner journey. That's something I wrote here. I was looking for a pen this morning. I just needed to, all I wanted to do was circle something or underline something in my thing that I hadn't done before. And I needed one, and I got one and it didn't work. Got another one and lo and behold, it didn't work. Got a third one and it didn't work. Got a pencil, and the thing, the nubs, couldn't use it, and it didn't have a point. Had to be sharpened. Okay, so that pen to me was of no use. It was designed, what I needed for it to do, and what it was designed to do, I couldn't use it to do that which it was designed for. So even in that little lesson, I said, oh, wow, I'm so grateful that the source of all life doesn't do the same thing with us. Because the things that we are designed to do, the purpose that we are here to do, lots of times we don't fulfill that. But I threw pens away, I want you to know. I'm grateful that I'm not thrown away when I don't live up to all that I'm supposed to be doing. Even out of that. So the Beautitudes remind us of the spiritual life we are created and designed to live so that we can manifest divinity in this realm. We bridged the gap and started talking about persecution and persecution for righteousness' sake. But the last part of it says, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. I got you.
Okay.
I'm going to finish reading this. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. And again, I wanted to point out that, when Jamel opened, when he started talking this morning, he talked about the issue of rejoicing and praising, and that's what they talked about on Wednesday nights to some extent. But that's where that is on the tree of life. If you put the Beautitudes on the tree of life, rejoicing is in kingdom. And it's saying, this is what we need to do, even though sometimes we don't understand it all. And a lot of times, when we're dealing with the spiritual things, we're not going to get the understanding within the confines of our minds.
Yes.
Because it is a thing that is experienced more than it's a thing of understanding.
Yeah. Persecuted for righteousness' sake. Right?
Yes.
And we're looking up sake on account of righteousness, with the root word being to be true or to be sincere. So when Ryan talks about the persecution, what you're being pursued for, you're being pursued
For the sake of truth.
for the sake of truth. There are disparaging remarks made, or you've been dismissed or there's an attempt to diminish your worthiness because you are in pursuit of truth. You see, so it's not on account of what you want, it's on account of what's real. It's not on account of religion, but it's on account of being a truth seeker.
Man, so this is a mirror when we sense that type of persecution to see actually that we are ripening. You see what I'm saying? When you start to have those situations that may arise physically with people or even internally when you start to doubt yourself, that even though your mind tells you that I'm all out, you know what I mean? I'm all off the path. This is giving you a mirror to say you are ripening at this point when that comes.
And when you're ripening, you don't necessarily look like the finished product. And we do need people sometimes to point that out. You know, like you're okay. You know, just go with what you feel, as opposed to buying into it and ending up at a pity party. You know,
The other thing
or
too,
diminishing the brother.
if you look at what persecution is in peacemakers, all of it is close to kingdom here. So those are the things that we get to before we ever get to pureness in heart and things like that. Those are the things that we have to go through, that we have to, the challenges that we have to withstand. And instead of getting bitter at someone who's persecuting us or us into hate, it says press on. Allow those challenges to be the thing that gets your attention, Mark's going you, that gets your attention, that reminds you to take that inner journey of discovering who you really are.
You said push. You go back to the womb again. You know, embrace those things that push you out of the womb. You know, and the thing that pushes you out of the womb is
irritable uterus. It just starts getting so that's an irritable environment at the time.
Yeah.
But it pushes you toward birth.
Irritate the uterus, and the uterus ain't get out.
It pushes you toward birth and the newness of life.
Yeah. You'd be like, no, it's a real world.
Put it back. It's not going back. That's what one lady said. I'm trying to put it back. She did. It's too late. You had a comment?
I'm kind of seeing something, but I'm not. Anyway, we started off this thing talking about breath, and we talked about us, how we breathed and shallow breath and all that. But I think what I'm seeing is all of these have to do with breath. And all of, like the first one, spirit is breath or wind. Blessed are those who mourn. It's talking about
Turmoil and confusion.
when you're in turmoil and confusion, your breathing is different. And then the other one, when you're hunger and thirst, and the deer panting, it's breath.
Yeah.
So I see all of them sort of bringing us back to the source of our breath.
That's what the Beatitudes are all about. They speak to the spirit, the breath of who we are.
Okay, now you elaborate.
If our source, if we're created in the image of the source of all being, in that or whatever, in beginning, and spirit is breath, we are breath. So everything is about breath. And everything is about breath, everything, and the source is breath. Everything, whatever it is, you said it in a nutshell. Everything reminds us of our origin. When we consciously are aware of it, and that's why we say when you face a situation and you begin to take a deep breath, because of the way we just talked about what breath meant, that ought to give you an opportunity. Like meditation, breathing can give you that opportunity to remember, okay, where am I getting my breath from?
Yeah,
it
even
kinda
to be a
refocuses.
peacemaker, you have to step back and take a breath.
Yeah.
And try to get others
Get yourself to
and
that
try to get
place.
others who are
Yeah.
on the front lines at each other, who are breathing very shallowly, to take that breath as well.
Yeah.
There is a type of breathing too, though, that you get beyond your intellect. You know, it really takes you out of self, and if you're looking at this on the board, you're talking about divine type of thoughts, and because if I'm basing my life on my experiences when I'm in trouble, that's what I come back to. So, you know, if I learn that I'm more than this frame, and my personal experiences also include you guys and every man that's been in the earth and will come in the earth. If I see myself at that level, then the peace in me is a little more stable than it normally would be. I don't cuss out the maintenance man in the middle of the week.
Amen.
Yeah. Life takes on a whole different meaning to me. So when I started to think and breathe outside of me, so to speak, that sounds ridiculous, but be able to see beyond my own intellect, my own thinking, to recognize that they're more and invite those kind of thoughts in. Whereas I start reading more than the Bible, you know, I start to take on more things, I become more.
In other words, you're not focusing on that selfish you,
Yeah.
me, I. You see yourself as part of the much bigger
Exactly.
universe.
So that's all a part of the breath too. It's the expanding, you know, man, it's you expanding.
I just had something simple to say, man. After Miss Archer said and listened to Ron, breath is just about interpenetration. Because when you're breathing in, it's penetrating your being, but when you're breathing out, you're penetrating everything. So when I'm looking at that with the Beautitudes we're dealing with, it's talking about our experience, about how the Creator, we're always being penetrated by the Creator.
Continual
Yes.
receiving and giving.
And how we can link that now through our experience to recognize the expansion that's going on.
Okay,
She closed up.
we'll do questions next time.
And he closed people.
Who's going to teach next week?